She had just made history. The first Filipino to win a Wimbledon singles match in the Open era. A historic 126,000 pounds, over 10.2 million pesos, sitting in her account. And then she did something that left the tennis world absolutely speechless. Alex Eala had carried the hopes of 115 million Filipinos onto Court 12 at the All England Club. She had delivered a dominant 6-1, 6-2 victory over Renata Zarazua. She had become the first Filipino player to win a Wimbledon main draw match since 1968, and in doing so, she had secured at least 126,000 pounds or 10.2 million pesos. The sea of red, white, and blue had erupted. The Filipino flags had waved. The cheers had echoed across the All England Club. It was the moment every Filipino tennis fan had been waiting for. But as the celebrations continued, Alex Eala was thinking about something else, something that would leave millions of Filipinos fighting back tears. What did Alex Eala do with her historic Wimbledon prize money, and why did it move an entire nation to tears? The roar of the crowd was deafening. Thousands of Filipino flags waved in the stands of Court 12 at the All England Club. The sea of red, white, and blue stretched across the court like a wave of national pride. And at the center of it all stood Alex Eala, a 21-year-old from Quezon City who had just done the impossible. June 30th, 2026, the day Alex Eala announced her arrival on the biggest stage in tennis. Seated 29th at Wimbledon, the first Filipino player in tennis history to earn a Grand Slam seed, Eala had stepped onto Court 12 with the weight of 115 million people on her shoulders. She had faced Mexico's Renata Zarazua, the world number 75, and in just 1 hour and 17 minutes, she had overwhelmed her opponent, winning 6-1, 6-2 in a performance of pure dominance. She hit 22 winners in an offensive-minded match, going 16 from 21 at the net. She faced just 2 breakpoints on her serve and saved them both. She converted 4 of 17 breakpoint opportunities. The statistics told a story of a player who had arrived fully prepared for the biggest moment of her career. The victory was historic. Eala had become the first Filipino player to win a Wimbledon singles match in the Open era. She had improved her grass season win-loss record to 10-3. She had avenged a 2024 defeat to Zarazua in the W100 carry quarterfinals, and she had secured at least 126,000 pounds or 10.2 million pesos in prize money. But the celebrations masked the deeper truth, a truth that would soon reveal itself in the most emotional way imaginable. The final point had been won. The crowd had erupted. The tears had flowed. But as Alex Eala walked off Court 12, she wasn't thinking about the victory. She wasn't thinking about the 126,000 pounds, over 10.2 million pesos, that was now sitting in her account. She was thinking about something far more important. She was thinking about home. Quezon City, the Philippines, the nation that had believed in her when no one else did, the families who had sacrificed everything, the children who would never get the chance to chase their dreams because they didn't have the resources. Eala had been training at the Rafa Nadal Academy in Spain since she was just 12 years old. She had left her family, her friends, her home behind to pursue a dream that most people considered impossible. She had endured the loneliness of being far from home, the pain of injuries, the sting of defeats, the weight of expectations, and she had never forgotten where she came from. The decision came to her in a flash. It wasn't calculated, it wasn't strategic, it was simply right. She picked up her phone and called her team in Manila. The words that followed would leave everyone on the other end of the line absolutely speechless. The Wimbledon prize money, every single penny of the 126,000 pounds, was going back home. Not to her family, not to her training, to the children who needed it most, to grassroots tennis programs in the Philippines, to the families who had sacrificed everything for their children's dreams, to the young girls who would see her success and believe that they too could achieve greatness. The line went silent, her team was stunned, and then the tears started flowing. Because Alex Eala wasn't just a tennis player, she was a daughter of the Philippines, and she was about to remind the world what that truly meant. The news of Eala's decision spread across the Philippines like wildfire. But before the headlines, before the social media posts, before the world knew what she had done, there was something else, something more powerful, something that had been building for months. The Filipino crowd at Wimbledon had been unlike anything the All England club had ever seen. Thousands of fans had packed Court 12. They had waved their flags. They had chanted her name. They had turned the most prestigious tournament in tennis into a home away from home. Eala herself was overwhelmed by the support. "I was really surprised," she said after the match. "Well, the Filipinos keep surprising me in good ways. I know how notoriously difficult it is to get tickets to this event, so to have what I would call a full house of almost Filipinos is amazing. I never would have thought that at Wimbledon I would have like a home crowd, so super thankful, and I really enjoyed that." But the crowd knew something that the rest of the world was about to discover. They knew that Eala had always carried the Philippines with her. Wherever she went, whatever she achieved, she had worn her Filipino identity with pride and consistency. They knew that despite leaving the Philippines at just 13 to train abroad, she had made a conscious effort not to lose her roots. They knew that more importantly, she put action behind her words by supporting and donating to causes in the country when they needed it. And now, she was doing it again. On the biggest stage in tennis, with the biggest payday of her career, she was giving it all away. The sea of red, white, and blue erupted, not just with celebration, but with tears. Because in that moment, every Filipino fan in that stadium understood what Eala's decision truly meant. It wasn't just about money, it was about sacrifice. It was about identity. It was about a young woman who had never forgotten where she came from. And as the news spread across the Philippines, millions of fans would join them in those tears. The news broke like a tidal wave across the Philippines. Social media platforms flooded with messages of emotion. The hashtag Eala Legacy began trending within hours. Fans who had followed Eala's journey from junior prodigy to Grand Slam seed were processing the stunning reality. Their hero had just given away her entire Wimbledon prize money, the biggest payday of her career. The reactions were overwhelming. Pride, shock, disbelief, and tears. Lots of tears. "I can't stop crying," one fan wrote on Twitter. "She worked so hard for that money. She sacrificed everything, and she gave it all away. This is what it means to be a true Filipino. My heart is full. She didn't have to do this, but she did, because she remembers where she came from. Laban, Alex. I've been following her since she was 12. I've seen her struggle, I've seen her fall, and now I've seen her give away everything she earned. I'm so proud to be Filipino." The comparisons to other Filipino sports icons were inevitable. Manny Pacquiao, Carlos Yulo, Hedlin Diaz. Athletes who had carried the flag with pride and given back to their country. But Eala's gesture was different. It was personal. It was immediate. It was a 21-year-old choosing to sacrifice her own future to build a future for others. The tennis establishment took notice. The media took notice. The WTA took notice. But the most powerful reaction came from the very people Eala was trying to help, the children in the Philippines who would benefit from the donation, the families who would see their dreams become possible, the young girls who would now have the opportunity to pick up a racket and believe. One fan captured the sentiment perfectly. "My roots are my strength, not my weakness." Those words, spoken by Eala herself, had never rung truer. The £126,000 would go toward grassroots tennis programs in the Philippines. It would build courts in communities that had never seen a tennis racket. It would buy equipment for children who had never held a ball. It would fund coaching for young athletes who had talent but no opportunity. It would give hope to families who had sacrificed everything for their children's dreams. And in doing so, Alex Eala had done something far more powerful than winning a tennis match. She had inspired an entire nation to believe that they too could make a difference. She had shown that greatness isn't measured by what you accumulate, but by what you give away.
The headlines had been written. The tears had been shed. The world had reacted. But as the dust settled on the most emotional story of Wimbledon 2026, a deeper question lingered in the air. What would this moment truly mean? For Alex Eala, the answer was simple. She hadn't given away £126,000 to make headlines. She hadn't done it for the praise. She had done it because at 21 years old, she understood something that most people spend a lifetime learning, that true success isn't measured by what you accumulate, but by what you give away. The money would build courts in communities that had never seen a tennis racket. It would buy equipment for children who had never held a ball. It would fund coaching for young athletes who had talent but no opportunity. It would give hope to families who had sacrificed everything for their children's dreams. But the legacy of this moment extended far beyond the tennis courts of the Philippines. It was about what Alex Eala represented. A young woman from a country with no history of Grand Slam success who had climbed to the top of her sport through sheer determination and grit. A woman who had never forgotten where she came from. A woman who had reminded the world that sports are about more than trophies and prize money. The timing couldn't have been more perfect. Eala's historic run at Wimbledon, the first Filipino to earn a seed, the first to win a singles match in the Open era, the first to reach the second round, had already captured the hearts of millions. But her decision to give away her prize money had transformed her from a sports hero to a national icon. Earlier in the year, she had said, "The Filipinos, we have such a strong sense of community. I feel like when one of us does well or one of us is succeeding, we all have that shared sense of pride." Those words had never rung truer. The tennis world had witnessed something rare, a 21-year-old who had everything to gain and nothing to prove, choosing to give it all away. A player who had just made history, turning her historic achievement into an opportunity to lift others. Venus Williams, who had partnered with Eala in doubles at Bad Homburg, had praised her grace on and off the court. Coco Gauff had called her the biggest draw in women's tennis. Tracy Austin had highlighted her slice serve and ability to play the angles, but none of that compared to what she had just done off the court. Because this wasn't just about tennis, this was about legacy. A legacy that would outlast any trophy. A legacy that would inspire generations of Filipino athletes to dream bigger, work harder, and never forget where they came from. The world had erupted in emotion. The tennis world had been moved to tears, and Alex Eala, the 21-year-old from Quezon City, had shown the world what it truly means to be a champion, not just on the court, but in life.